evening, good night, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to the 2023 edition of the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sewalong. We're here, yay! I'm so excited for this. It's going to be a fantastic year. I have totally nerded out on getting it ready, and the theme and everything else for this year. It's going to be a blast, new format. So I can appreciate that it's a change. Not everybody, however, is on Instagram. So I wanted to be able to give it a chance for people who are not on Instagram to come and join us. It'll also be more organized. We're only going once a month, so that means you won't be scrolling through my feed trying to find where the videos are. You can go straight to YouTube and get them from there. Really easy, really straightforward. The other thing it changes is the format, right? We're going to be horizontal, not vertical. That's the big difference. That's another huge difference. So accessibility as well as the format there in all of that. So let's get to it. Do you like my self-portraits? That's morning make this year. Total digression. I just want to, I can't do the chat on the phone and everything, so I'm just going to go to pull it up. Bear with me for a second. There we go. I want to pull up, I'm going to mute myself though. I want to pull up the live on. Good evening, good night, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to the 2023 I thought I hit edition of the Quilters Playcation Adventures. There we go. So that I can see the chat. If it's here, where is it? Hold on a second. This is new for me, so bear with me for 1 second. I just want to be able to, we should be able to chat. I wonder if I need to do that here. Enable chat. No. Super annoying. Trying to figure out the chat and all this. I may not have it. So apologies. I'll figure that out for next time, but I thought it kind of automatically came up. But I guess I was wrong. I apologize for that. Let's get into it then. So in 2023, I've chosen a theme. So rather than just kind of, because we're only doing it once a month, that was more for my sanity. I'm sorry if you wanted more. But I just needed to have a better schedule for myself. I loved the accountability of once a week, but I needed once a month just because of life and schedule. And then there's a little bit less pressure for all of you. If you felt pressure, I hope you didn't feel pressure, but in case you did, hopefully there is less now. So that's why the once a month. So we're going to do 10 months. We gave ourselves January to catch up on last year, take a breather, relax, not feel too much pressure or anything. So that was January. February is the start. We're going to do 10 blocks on our theme, and then December will be the assembly into a quilt top, that sort of thing that we did in January for 2022. So that's the agenda. Now, what's the theme? I got a little bit nerdy about this. I was going back and forth on different things. What did I want to do? But then when I thought this one, I got not chills, but I got very excited. And I've learned over the years that when I get very excited and the ideas start coming, to just run with it. Don't ignore those feelings at all. So our theme for 2022 is a lot of fun and a little bit silly. Maybe, I don't know. It's just fun. We're going to do a treasure map in there. So I thought of the word adventure and what are some of kind of the ultimate adventures in the world and different things that you can do and everything. and adventure movies came to mind, and that got me thinking about, when people are going on a treasure hunt, and they're looking for something, and they have the map, and they have to decode it, and what does it mean, and everything. So, a couple of movies came to mind. I'm blanking on the name of it. That one with Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey, not Failure to Launch, but the other one where they're on a treasure map, Pirates of the Caribbean. There was a show with Jacques Cousteau's grandson where they would look for treasures that we used to watch. So that's my inspiration for all of this. So we are, in a way, going to make a treasure map throughout the year. So I started researching and investigating the different symbols that are on maps that you might have in there, what the overall map looks like. Typically, we're talking about pirate treasure. So that leads us to today's block. I'm not going to tell you the rest of the blocks, but we're going to start with this. Now, you might think, oh, we should have started with an X. X marks the spot where the treasure is, but that's not our first block. Because I thought pirates, water is our first block. We have to have the water of the map in there. So that is what we're going to do today. Now, I have, like last year, 2 different versions planned. I wanted to show you 2 very different ways to approach this. One is a little more literal in terms of actually making a map and thinking about that. And then the other one is a little more abstract. And I think they'll both really work with the blocks that I have in mind for this. So, and that way it gives you options on how you want to create your blocks a little bit, different sorts of things that you can do along the way. So these are the 2 sorts of versions I've got going on. I have, at this point, already kind of thought ahead as to how I might put this together, but who knows? It could totally change. It could absolutely change. You could make 1 block. That's it. 1 block per month, low stress, just have fun, and they'll all relate to each other. You could be thinking of an entire quilt. It's entirely up to you. I'm thinking entire quilts, but both are very different. So what do I have going on? The first one I have is, you know me, I love my prints. So this is the block we're going to make today. Waves representing the flowing water, right? We'll get into how this block is made shortly. And then the second one is a more abstract kind of version. I wanted to show that each block can stand on its own from an interesting design point of view, and that they don't have to all be the same in there. Now, so that's what this solid one, you'll see, these are small blocks. I wanted to also play with the scale. It didn't have to be big. I have a tendency, I know, to go big, but I wanted to force myself to play with a smaller scale as well. So that's going to be that in there. So I've got some of those ideas. I'm making multiple blocks of each. I may down the line make more. I may not use them all. We'll just have to see. I'm just going to enjoy the process. And that's what I hope you will do, because it's the playcation. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be enjoying the process along the way. So let's get into it. First off, fabric. We always want to talk fabric selection. I'm thinking each block will be its own element, or each month, I should say, will be its own element. So fabrics are going to vary from month to month. In there, you can take a whole collection now that you know the theme, right? We're doing a treasure map, so you can take colors from there, or you can just wait and each month pick for that month. I think that would be totally fine, right? To just wait and see what's coming and pick from there. And each time I'll talk about what's important in our fabric selection for that block. So for today, because I'm doing water, obviously my colors are going to go towards blues, kind of obvious. I wanted to have kind of that Caribbean feel. So maybe you're going to have a little bit of greens in there, some dark ocean stuff. You could play, you know, kind of coming dark to light or light to dark. All of that will work really well. I like having the variety of some dark and light mixed together, but that's entirely up to you. I'm just going blue, right? Blue seems very obvious because we're talking water, but within that, anything goes. So you could do solids, you can do prints. You can see from my prints, I've gone for more the tone on tone kind of prints. There's a little bit of white in there as opposed to, oh, I put my bin away. Hold on a second. I'm going to grab my bin. I just want to show it to you. So I've gone more tone on tone rather than these kinds of prints where I'm adding lots of other color in there, you know, large scale prints, although sometimes large scale prints when they're cut small kind of give you some interesting things. I've got map fabric, which would actually be kind of interesting in there as well. But, you know, thematically, it doesn't really matter. This again could be interesting, but there's a lot of white in that, in there. This is the kind of print I'm going to avoid, just because it's actually, you know, with the white background with the blue. That's me. I want this kind of tonal sort of look. You may have different views, or it's the fabric you have, right? Sometimes we use the fabric that we have. And I've got to say, it's not going to look bad with these fabrics. I'm just saying this is the choice I'm making. This is just going to have a different look when you start adding these kinds of fabrics together, right? It just is going to have a bit of a different look when you start playing with brighter prints like that. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it, just a different look. This is the look I'm going for with that more sort of tonal look. For my solids little blocks, because I'm going a little bit more abstract, I've only added one wave to each block with a dark background. In this case, blue. I would have really liked navy blue, but I didn't have any. So I went with what I had, which is black. I wanted a dark background and I wanted those blue waves to kind of pop in there. So I'm going to show us how to make both of these blocks today. Have fun with it. Go ahead and do what makes you feel good, what gets you excited. If you're stuck and think, oh my God, we've got 10 months and I don't know where to start, just make one block. That's all you have to do, is just make one block, play with scraps. Don't even have it in these colors. Just play with the technique, see where that leads you, because the creative action begets creativity. So if you're stuck, just make a block, grab some random fabrics, make the block, see where it takes you, see what inspires you and where you want to go with that. Sound good? All right, let's go. I'm going to flip you around. Over here, I am going to see something. Did have a thought. No. Yeah. Oh, chat is disabled. Yeah. See, I have disabled chat. I'm going to have to learn how to enable that. So next month, I promise, I will have that in there. So I'm just going to get rid of my computer because I don't need it. And I'm going to flip you around. Let's see if my camera will flip around. There we go. Let's say hello to the ladies. How are they today? And then we're going to come down here to the, sorry, I'm just tightening my tripod. Doesn't want to tighten up. Okay, hold on. I'm out of practice, folks. There we go. Okay, there we are on the cutting table. We don't need my sketchbook. I just brought it for my notes. get that out of the way, and we'll get all this fabric out of the way because I've already cut fabric in anticipation of this. So you might be asking me, yourself, this is why we need the chat, because you might have questions regarding this. So I do apologize for that. How long, the question you're probably asking is, how long should these strips be? And the answer is however long you want them to be. I do recommend probably, I wouldn't go longer than sort of the 12 to kind of 15-inch realm, because these can get unwieldy for both cutting and sewing. But, you know, I've got 24 inches on my cutting mat, and that's probably as big as I would go, because then I can cut up nicely along there. So you can make big, long, almost like rows or really long blocks if you want. They don't have to end up square. They don't have to be small rectangles. You can go with different things. See, these were pieces that I had trimmed off as I was making these. So I've just kind of put them there, because then maybe I'll make a smaller block with them on that point. So we're just going to set those aside for now. And I have these strips here. You can take a moment if you want to plan out the order that you want things in. So maybe I go like that and like that. You know, I have this blue, but I'm not actually really liking it with these colors. So I'm going to take that out. Maybe I put this in, and then, you know, another one, something like this. You can play around with it, or you can just pick two and go two at a time in there. So I'm just going to set aside, because all we're going to work with is 2 strips at a time. So for those of you who remember from last year, we're doing curves. So what we want to do is we want to layer our fabric right sides up, right? And then we're going to make a cut. And this way, the line of the cut will match on both of these. Now, I want to make sure I don't cut, like if I'm cutting on top here, I've still got this fabric underneath. So it's good to have it a little bit offset so that I can see. So I can see here at the bottom where that fabric ends and at the top. And if you're really worried, use your cutting mat to your advantage. I rarely use the lines on a cutting mat when I'm trimming, but this can be to your advantage. So I know that my strip ends on this line, so I'm not going to really go over it, but I'm not too worried. I'm going to take my ruler or rotary cutter, and I'm just going to start cutting a gradual kind of wave. Basically, you do have to go a bit slow, because the fabric will want to bunch, as you saw. And so you just kind of want to go slow and make sure it stays as flat as it can. Then you're going to pull away those little strips. There is a strip behind. And then I've got that to sew together. Doesn't look like much, but once we get a few of these, it really makes a difference. So I want to keep those kind of lined up where they were. And like always, when we're sewing curves, I'm only going to worry about 1 inch at a time. So try to have your machine stop with the needle down, which I hadn't set that yet. And then I'm just going to go. And I'm going to line up as I move forward. I'm not pinning. I'm not gluing. You may need to stop and pivot depending on how big your curves are. I'm just going slow, lining it up as I go down. There we go. And then use my little spider so that I don't have that. I still haven't gotten my tension sorted out on my machine. So yours won't look that like it wants to gather. So it's going to look like this. Now we're going to go press that over here. Just pick one direction to press in. It really doesn't matter. You just don't want the seam allowance flip-flopping as you go across the seam. See, pretty straightforward. It works quite nicely. And then we're going to repeat that with the next piece. Now I didn't cut my pieces straight, I just freehand cut, so we're getting kind of a natural curve in that. You can run with that, right? It doesn't matter which side you put on top, as long as you're just paying attention to where the edge is on something. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to use that curve that's in my piece there and remove. The only thing you don't want to do when you're doing kind of multiples is you don't want to just do the same line across. It will get boring. You want to vary your curves and your waves along the way there. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this one. So it's just a repetitive process. Obviously, the longer you make your strips, the more it takes to sew, but it's the same process whether you have a 2 or 3 inch strip or a 20-inch strip. The only difference is that when you're working smaller, and I will show you this, you just got to be a little bit more patient with the sewing because you have those curves. The longer, more gradual they are, the easier it is to sew, frankly. They give you a nice curves there. So go ahead and press that over here. Quite often I will do these blocks. I will press in just one direction, but it really doesn't matter. I think on my first one I didn't. I love steam for this, but if you're a dry iron person, that's okay too. Your flatter pressing spray is also quite handy to help get these to lay flat, but on the bigger blocks, you shouldn't have any trouble having it lay flat. Okay, so we have that curve. I'm going to add 2 more. I think odd numbers look best in this, which my mother-in-law will love because from a decorating point of view, she's always told me that, that odd numbers look best. There we go. I got a bit more curve on that one, so that's going to be fun to do. Let's get over here for sewing. There we go. So again, I'm only worrying about what's a bit now. You can see because I've done a little bit more curve, we're going to have a little bit more wiggling or lining up to do. So remember, we're going to have our hands, and think about it this way. Whether you're right-handed or left-handed, it's pretty much going to be the same. You want the top piece in your left hand and the bottom piece not in your right hand, just your right hand resting here so you can guide it as you go. And you want to be very careful not to be pulling on this because you've created this really bias edge, and if your block's not laying flat, one of the reasons it's probably not laying flat is that when you sew, you're pulling this and stretching it out. So you can see I'm getting at the point now where I have this concave curve with a convex on top, and they don't want to line up as much. And so this is the time where you go a little bit slower because you don't want to have puckers. We're still doing the same idea, just lining up as we go, making sure it's pulled out of the way. There we go. So think of it this way, you're guiding the fabric into the sewing machine. You're not reefing it away from it. There we go. And then we'll press that piece. That's what we've got. We'll press that piece. When it's sewn and you see it from the back, it really does not look like much. But then you go here. So I'm going and I'm with my fingers making sure my seam allowance is going the right way. So I can do that with the tip of the iron or with my fingers, or in my case, both. See, I got that nice curve along there. Okay, let's do one more, and then I'll show you the little one. I love these water blocks. I have a whole quilt top. I have to confess. I have a whole quilt top that I did. Now here, just wait before I get on that. See how this piece is kind of wrinkled and everything like that? It's best to start with nicely pressed pieces because they'll just cut a little more smoothly for you. Okay. I have a whole set of blocks that I have done this way in various sizes that I could never figure out the layout that I wanted for it. And then I eventually did, but I've never put the quilt top together. One of these days. Okay, I'm going to go that way. So you'll see I'm holding behind it. That's going to help keep it flat. It wants to move a little bit at the top too. So just go slow. There we go. That's going to be my last piece along there. And then this one will be done. I think water is a great one to start with, not just because thematically, but this is a very relaxing block to make, at least for me. I hope it is for you too. I hope I've broken it down in a way that makes it relaxing, but they just look relaxing. I can't afford to go on a tropical vacation this winter, so I'm taking one through these blocks. It's been a long time since I saw a warm weather beach. And I think the last time I actually saw one, it wasn't even that warm. It was when QuiltCon was in Savannah and my husband and I drove to the coast. I think that was the last time I saw a southern ocean. So there we go. So you can do it with an extra hit of steam. You can do flatter. If you are a starch person, this can be the time that you use the starch. You don't want to start with starched pieces. I really don't find that it lends itself well to this curved piecing, but I'm also not a starch user. But the couple of times I've tried it, I didn't like it. But if you're a very comfortable starch user, that may work for you. Okay, so let's look at our two blocks together. Right, so there's our two blocks together. I am not at this point intending to sew them so that it's a nice big tall block, but you might, right? That might be you. So you can make them in smaller proportions, or you can just keep adding rows to get it taller. right? That's up to you. In all likelihood, mine will end up kind of going together like this, but I could flip those around if I wanted to. I could play. When I join them together, there's a pretty good chance I'll do that kind of approach as opposed to squaring them up to a standard size. I'll give them a nice wave there, but I like that we're going to have variation. We'll have block distinctions, but it's still giving that overall effect in all of that. Just like last year, I am not going to square these ones up because I don't know exactly where we're going with them yet. So we've got that. So those are the big ones. Now let's talk about these small ones. You can see that I have squared these up. I wanted to do that because I know where I'm going with these. I have a really solid idea for them. So what I did is I cut out randomly squares of black or a background, whatever your background's going to be. In my case, it was black. And I cut them out. I think these are roughly sort of between 4 and 4.5 inches. I didn't care what size I was going to end up with. I just wanted to, if I start with the same size, it's pretty good. Then I went into actually my scrap bin and pulled out some scraps of blue. I didn't have to cut from stash. I had enough in there. And made sure I had some pieces that were, you know, a good inch wide and more or less the same length of my piece. So I'm going to do that. And let's do this one again. There we go. So I've got 2 pieces that I can do in there. Same idea. We're layering right sides up, but because I'm just inserting into the black, I'm not doing it as a strip. I've got my square and I'm going to do a slice through it, but layered, right? So same idea. I've cut them and I've got a layer and I'm going to sew these 2 together and just hold on to this for the time being. Right. So I'm just going to take these 2 pieces to sew together and leave that. Same with this. I'm going to sew these 2 together and leave this. I know my dark blue's on top, my bottom is there. If I chain piece, that's how I like to remember things. Let's have some recollection. Now I'm just going to make sure that these are going to line up the way I want them to. Flip them over. They're solids, but you still got to make sure that you've cut them right sides up, but you sew right sides together. So you just got to pay attention. Now on these smaller ones with the curves, one thing you can do is you can reduce your stitch length. That will just minimize the potential for puckers. The sewing machine's being very noisy and I don't know why. I think I need to take her in for a tune-up is really what needs to happen. But that's hard when I'm always using her, right? It's always hard to have that downtime in there. Okay, just going a little bit slower because I got a bit of a curve, more of a curve there. There we go. All right, there's my 2. We did the one and then the other. I'm going to press these to the black just because I've got some lighter blues. And design wise, just as long as I'm consistent, I'm happy with it. There we go. Pretty straightforward. I remember top and bottom, right? With these little bits, I'm kind of wanting to sort of mimic the cut that I have. So that's why I'm putting the black on top. so that I can see what that line is, but I'm not worried about it being super parallel, right? Like I have to cut exactly on this line, because if I do that, I'm just asking for a headache there. So I've got that one. We'll cut like that. I do want these to end up fairly skinny. Most of mine are kind of in that sort of 1/2 inch realm. So I'm, you know, if this is what I want it to look like, I'm not going to cut there. I need to have seam allowance built into that. So there we go. We'll sew those, and then those blocks are done. See, these ones are going to go together real fast. So you can see, you can get, you know, quite simple or abstracted as this is the case, but it's very simple too. But it's the idea of waves and water is what we're trying to represent with this. And it comes up with, you know, just a really simple, straightforward block. So I'll press those real quick, and then we'll turn the camera back up. So these are the 2 blocks that I'm going to be making, or 2 styles of blocks. One a little bit more abstracted, and one a little bit more literal, one small, one big. I actually debated going even smaller with these, and there may be times where I make some smaller blocks because small is fun too, right? So let's look over here again, right? I have my more simple, abstracted, but we still get the idea of the waves. And then we have our bigger ones in there. Now, one other note on these, remember I had those smaller pieces? You can do the same thing. They don't all have to end up the same size. Because I kind of anticipate these may be the edge of the quilt, whether it's a border or I end up medallion style, I'm not entirely sure. It'll be interesting to have different length blocks in there. So that's why this will be really good, is to use these smaller pieces. They're not going in the scrap bin just yet. They'll be used for this along the way. So let's flip you around. There's my tropical beach. This is my fantasies here. Nova Scotia, that's Halifax, made by Third Story Workshop Andrea, and my daughter actually made the tile in art class last year. And my ladies, my quilters from Alabama. Let's turn you back around. So I hope you enjoyed month 1. We're going on quite the adventure this year. We're hunting for buried treasure is really what we're doing. And maybe the treasure is inside of us. Who knows? I could get all metaphorical, but I'm not going to. I'm silly, but not that silly. Come on. But that's where we're going to be this year. What I recommend is grab yourself a bin, a pizza box, a shoe box, whatever makes sense in your space, and keep all of this together in there. Because we're only doing it once a month, it can probably, and I'm speaking from experience myself, it would probably be pretty easy for these to get lost. And you're not going to want that. You're going to want to be able to have them when you're picking fabric each month, to be able to refer to what you have already so that you can use those. So keep them handy. I'm looking around, I'm sure I can find or empty a bin, so I can do exactly the same thing, so that I'm not panicking in March going, where are my blocks? Where are my blocks? Because I want to be able to show you them all sort of building as we go. So just to recap before we pack up for the day. The 2023 Adventure Sewalong is back, this time with the theme where we're looking for buried treasure. So we're making a map of sorts. You can get very literal with this, or you can stay very abstract or land somewhere in between. I'm doing both. I'm doing a much more abstract version in solids and at a smaller scale. And then I'm going to do a more literal version that will be quite large because it's me and I always work large. I'm thinking I have ideas for how these might get laid out, but be open to the process. I'm not going to reveal them because I might change. So we'll see where things go. Make one block, make 20. It's entirely up to you. We will play with getting these together down the line. You may find 5 months in, you have a great idea for a layout and you need to go back and make more blocks from a certain month. Or you'll only use one from 1 month in there. It's just gonna be open to the process. That's the whole point. My husband often defines in our family, because we're weird, it's an excursion when we're going out to try something new and have fun and see what's out there. It's an adventure when something or someone doesn't make it back. So that's why I've used the word adventure here, because we may not use every component. We're all going to come back from it, don't worry. But we may not use every component that we make. So that's that adventure kind of part in there. And because we don't know where we're going, we're giving in to the improv process. So I am Cheryl Arkison. This is month 1 of the 2023 Adventure Sewalong. I'm excited that you're here for a Quilters Playcation because we all deserve it. Don't hesitate to put comments below. I encourage you to subscribe. I hate this on YouTube, but I'm just doing it. I encourage you to subscribe so that you get notifications whenever I do go live with these videos. I also encourage you to check out the Quilters Playcation website. There's always lots of info in there. I'll talk more about the Adventure Sewalong and put monthly updates on that. I've also got more parties and by request play dates coming up. So parties are classes, online virtual workshops, live, not recorded. So sign up for those. Even if you've taken one before, that you can take the same one and come and hang out and learn a few new things or have it come back for you. So we've got a Scandi Village, again, always a favorite. Cut Sew Repeat. We have a Churn Dash Dance Party. This is a new one, playing with a very classic block. We're gonna do all sorts of fun things with it. And then the Itty Bitty Scraps is coming back as well because everybody loves that one too. As for the play dates, these are basically virtual sew dates. So sewing circle, come hang out. You can sew or not sew. That's always the case with mine. But I'm not necessarily going to be teaching in those events. I'm creating the space for us to be. I will have activities, games, things to do, but it's more about creating the space for all of us to hang out. And so then we'll be on Zoom for those. They will again be live. And so we've got 3 of those booked up. So you can check those out on the Quilters Playcation website in there. And otherwise, we'll see you in a month for month 2 in March for the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sewalong 2023. It is March 7th. I will be up bright and early after a weekend away chaperoning a ballet event. I better be ready before I go because that's going to be rough. And we'll see you then. That will be an adventure, probably. All right, everybody, take care. Have yourself a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a good morning. Wherever you are, I wish you well and have fun playing.